Okay, guys, we'll just get going. There's a fair bit of content to get through today. So we'll just get back and people come late, they can sneak in. Today's first, we've got virtual people on the computer here on Google Meet, so we haven't done that before, so that's something new. And we're just working out how that all plays out. So this is from Australian Advocacy Group. As you can see, my name's Trevor Hull. This is an endeavour that I created. It's a commercial business. Where's the business name of Fernval Commynity Meeting? So basically what we set up is commercial, just so we can create members and with numbers to create pressure, to create positive outcomes on the campaigns that we're working towards. And obviously at the moment the biggest campaign is the fire hand eradication program. We're trying to get better outcomes for people. So that's where we're at. Today we've got a few speakers, but before we get going, Senator Malcolm Roberts wanted to say a few words. So we'll just get him first. He's got some commitments in the city, so hopefully we can get him underway. Thanks, Senator. Did you want to come say a few words? Malcolm's been working with us quite a lot, and he's been fairly vocal about this issue, and he's been raising a lot of stuff at the Senate's estimates hearing. So.
I'm sure. Yes, I'm nervous. I think you can see fire ants, but you can't see me. Look, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. This is something that I've just been reading on the way down from Bundy last night, travelling today rather, about the CFMEU. We've been fighting the bastards for 6 years. They're stealing $1.3 billion off about 5,000 coal miners. What's going on in our country is symptomatic of what's happening. I see Jim nodding his head here. And it's all about control by a few people and wealth transfer. They're stealing money from the workers they're supposed to represent. So there's nothing new going on, Judas. Not just, but you are another symptom of what's happening in our country. I want to start by complimenting everyone involved. Particularly, congratulations on setting up a meeting so quickly. I want to mention particularly Connie. She's bringing some real discipline to the whole movement. Sarah for her leadership, and I've watched her. I saw her from her first speech at Sanford, tentative and making excuses, and she didn't need to make a single excuse. It was beautiful. And now look at her. She's on ABC, she's on media, she's leading communities, and she's leading the network around South East Queensland. Trevor, of course, everyone, no need for introduction there. Now, other people that I mentioned at Stanford recently, Hunter from Boona, Ben from Stanford, Brett, Gary Duffy, Gino on the Gold Coast, all coming together. That's what's wonderful to see. In my experience, about 8 years before entering the Senate, I chose to fight the climate fraud. And that showed me that there are so many people involved in trying to protect our communities and stop us from being under control, to protect our rights and our freedoms. When I got into the Senate, I realised that what we're doing, just so that you realise you're not on your own, what we're doing is we're fighting so many people in the government that are using your money, so you pay taxes, money pays taxes to the government, and then has the privilege of opposing the people who choose to support it. That's what's going on. Every major issue in our country every major problem comes out of Parliament House, Canberra. Every major problem. The government is not representing you, not serving you. The government is trying to control both parties, Labor and Liberal. And Jim, I forgot to mention Jim. Jim's done some marvellous work. When did we meet, Jim? Probably
4 or 5 years ago.
No, seems like a long time ago. But Jim was doing some marvellous work on biosecurity. But what's striking is how people have come together And always when people come together, there are conflicts. But I see very few conflicts in the groups around South East Queensland because you've got a common enemy now. So the teamwork has been really marvellous. It's all voluntary. Who's being paid? No one. No one. The real issue here is not fire ants. The real issue is democracy, preserving democracy. We're actually clawing it back. And property rights. Jim's been involved in property rights. I've been involved in property rights for well over a decade. There's another major issue, and that's the children. The children are the future of this country, future of this planet, and their lives are being sacrificed right now. And I don't just mean by poisons being dropped out of helicopters into rainwater tanks, roofs, and children drinking that. I don't mean pets dying. I don't mean the children actually suffering themselves, but their whole future. So what drives your movement is one word: care. Care for humans, care for the future. I've seen people with a variety of feelings across the last few years. Well, actually we've been since 2016 on this fire ants issue. Feelings from anger, fear, sadness, hurt, disappointment, complete frustration and hopelessness. Why? Because you're needing to be heard. There's no sense that the government or the people who are making decisions are listening to you at all. You're needing trust, you're needing truth, you're needing honesty, you're needing support, you're needing freedom. Just to get on with your life. You just want to be left alone, correct? Yes. That's it. And to be heard. So these are basic needs of humans. And then we see how much frustration there is from the fact that we have a failed campaign. This has been going how long, Jim? Sarah, the fire ants program?
2001.
2001. And we've gone from one nest in the wharves in Brisbane to thousands of nests right across South East Queensland. And Jim, it's expanding, isn't it?
Yeah, huge. 880,000 hectares, mate.
Yeah, but not only that, it's expanding rapidly now.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yep.
And do they tell you that? Why? Why don't they tell you the truth? Because it's all about money and control. So that's why. But the eradication program, the containment program, whatever you want to call it, has completely failed and it's getting worse. And then we also realise, I've asked many people, tell me the danger from these fire ants. What's the danger? How many people have died? How many animals have died? All I've heard, and all of that hundreds of people I've asked is, I've heard of some sheep, some lambs being inconvenienced, being agitated. That's it. Then we learn about Texas and Florida, where the fire ants are, and we find that there's not that much going on. You just have to learn to live with them. And then we realise that groups in the community are not chasing fire ants. You've got no opposition to fire ants, have you? You'll remove fire ants. You're happy to do that.
Yeah.
You've got no opposition to that. You haven't got any opposition to it, Sarah. But what you want is just to be able to live peacefully. And Trevor's developed a way of treating other people in the world have developed ways of treating fire ants. And if you just left alone and left to treat the fire ants where they are, then you actually solve the problem. Would that be right, Jim?
Definitely.
And instead, what we see is helicopters dropping poisons out of the sky in areas and valleys like Santa where there are no bloody fire ants. This just doesn't make sense. Until you realise the core issue is money. Having an eradication program, the states contribute, right? So there's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's been over $1 billion, isn't it, Trevor?
1.2 billion.
1.2 billion. And so the motive is money. We've heard conflicts of interest during the last few years where the husband of a member of parliament is getting money to drop poisons out of the helicopters, and the same person supplies the poisons. So Hugh will talk more about those kinds of things in a minute. But it's a serious environmental issue, serious human issue, mental health issue, as Trevor keeps pointing out quite correctly. It's also a property rights issue, and there's nothing more fundamental to property than to democracy and individual initiative and responsibility and freedom and property rights. There's also fundamental legal issues. You, barrister in our office, will talk about the illegalities going on. They don't care about the law, yet they try to enforce the law on you. It's a serious governance issues. And we've been chasing it in the Senate, even though it's a state issue, through Senate estimates questions, letters to federal and state ministers, speeches, rallies, having an inquiry, and he has been at a number of, representing my office, has been at a number of meetings and forums for the fire ant. So we're using the Senate's limited abilities to deal with the state issue, but we are having some impact there. I've talked about the conflicts of interest. How do you get to treat something that's not even there? Example, no fire ants. When it comes to governance, what's the purpose of a government? What's the purpose of a government? Thank you. What's your name? Kerry. It's exactly it, to serve the people. Governments are assembled by the people to serve the people. And this government is not. These governments are not serving you. We've got volunteers in this room and all over South East Queensland fighting the government that they fund to serve you. So the final comment I would make, Trevor, is that democracy is an active form of government. When democracy is not active and it becomes passive, it lapses into tyranny. That's what you can see. People terrorising you, literally terrorising you from out of the sky, helicopters and toxins that affect your health, that are affecting people's health. That's tyranny. So just remember the whole time, keep sending us questions to Senate estimates, keep asking us to come and get involved. You actually enjoy serving people. He's had a lifetime of doing that. He can explain that himself. But democracy is an active form of government, otherwise it fails. And what you guys are doing is supporting government in a very active way. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator Malcolm. The other thing too, I think, beneficial to suggest is that the sovereignty, that the government representing the sovereignty of the people does so with the social contract, that it governs to benefit the people as well, in the best interest of the people. And I feel at the moment it's not doing that. So thanks very much for your contributions today, Malcolm, and as always I appreciate your support. It's a bit hard to talk on here and a bit of slides, so I'll just grab the other one. That's right. So, guys, just quickly go through this. I'm Trevor Hole. Generally just a counsellor and mental health practitioner. I've got a small acreage farm, and I'm here to create better outcomes in the community because a lot of clients were expressing a lot of stress and anguish over this program, and I lost 2 of my calves to repeated excessive distribution of toxic chemicals onto my property, affecting my cows, which in turn affected the embryo and fetus development of 2 of my calves. Tiffany's out there. She's campaigning for the brothers that she'll never get to spend any time with, and we can go and see her a bit later on. We got a guest speaker, Jim Wilmot. He's going to go through some biosecurity stuff with us. And Sarah Maguire, she's going to talk about what's been going on in Sanford. And we got guest speaker David Lowe. He's logging on the internet. He's down there in Melbourne. He's going to talk about pesticide reduction and benefits and that on that. Then we got Dr. Connie Turney talking about APVMA permits, and that's what we want to do. So basically, the schedule is just a basic introduction. Jim Wilmot, and also we're just going to have a look at the AAG website and look at the major documents of the campaign. Then we're going to go to Sanford with Sarah Maguire and the police arrest. We just had a bit of a talk through Dr. Joshua King's open letter and Pesticide Australia's open letter.
and then we'll just get some insight from David Lowe, and then and Connie can talk about their permits, and then Hugh is going to talk about some reasonable excuses and some legal perspectives on the program. As Malcolm said, he's part of Malcolm Roberts' office there, and action steps that we're doing. Malcolm's wife can address come first, so I've already done that, so that's good. So with that, Jim, you're up.
Hi everyone, my name's Jim Wilmot. I'm a beef producer between Gayndah and Mergen. And I used to work for Biosecurity Queensland back in the early 2000s and was around when fire ants was first detected. I'll just briefly run through it. I might be going over some old ground for people, but they were first detected in 2001 at the Port of Brisbane, but when they did trace back, they've been there for up to 10 to 15 years prior to that, and the initial coverage was about 40,000 hectares, so that had already spread quite an area since first detection. They came in, we think, from shipping containers from South America, but we can't be exactly sure. So then we started with an eradication program managed by the state government through a national biosecurity arrangements where all the states and territories, including Queensland, they put in about 10%. The rest of the states, New South Wales puts in the biggest amount out of the states and territories. They make up 50%, and then the federal government puts in another 15%. So, like Malcolm said, so initial population was 40,000 hectares, it's now spread to 880,000 hectares. And sure, you might see the department come out and say that they have eradicated some areas, which they have. Gladstone, Sydney, Western Australia, when they're small, and I'll just run through this in the invasion curve, you can eradicate fire ants, but they were never going to eradicate fire ants even at 40,000 hectares. They should have put in a strong containment program to lock it down and manage them over all these years. So now we're looking at the eradication strategy, and you can see the blue line is their surveillance, the red line is at the 10 kilometre deep eradication zone, and what they're doing is trying to do the horseshoe, they're trying to push that infestation in and think they're going to eradicate it. And there's very high density populations down in the southern part where a lot of the housing development has been, but that's the overall strategy. And as you know, there's still some out Dolby they've got in the housing development, not Dolby, sorry, Oak Air Base, and at the Highlands of Toowoomba. They've recently found some in North Arm, Wollongbar, and Warrell in New South Wales. So this is the most important thing that I want you to focus on here. It's called the Pecker curve. So you've got prevention, eradication, containment, massive protection. Up the vertical axis, you've got area occupied. Along the bottom axis, you've got time. So what we really want to do with pests, and this goes right across whatever pest species that you're going to focus on, fire ants, it can be anything, is to keep it out. And really, we should have, that's why we need strong national and state biosecurity systems to try and keep the stuff out. And that's why we need to pour as much money as we can, because the return on investment is high. Because considering what that's spent on fire ants now, 1.2 billion. And so, but once it does get in, we need to jump on it as quick as we can, because again, you get the highest return on investment. Sadly, the department think that it's still eradicatable in that zone. But really, you can't say 880,000 hectares is a small area. And what you're seeing is other infestations starting to jump that line and spring up everywhere, just with the sheer number of fire ants and the amount of vectors that you and I, the amount of mulch, the amount of transport of materials out of that zone where they're high density, that is what's spreading. And they do fly as well, 5 kilometres a day. And then when you go up into containment, and that's where I think the program is now, it's probably in the upper side of that containment. And really containment is about locking down an area and not letting them jump over that wall, and then looking at how we learn and constantly suppress within that remaining area. But remember, the important point is with any pest species, containment is forever. So we as a community have to learn how to live with fire ants from now until eternity. There's not going to be a magic bullet like Cataplastus and prickly pear, and they might bring a biocontrol agent, which there is overseas, but it's not going to wipe them out. We're going to learn as a community, as industries, of how we work together. So that's a really downfall of the government. So you can't do it. So if you look at the government-led program now, it's actually pretty heavy-handed because they still think they're in this eradication zone. They still have the belief that they're going to eradicate every single ant across 880,000 hectares. How do you reckon that's going to go? It's not feasible, is it? But remember, their money that they get from the states and the feds is reliant on it continuing to be eradication and eradication focus. Without that, they don't get the money. It's disengaging, it's cost shifting to local governments. There has been numerous local governments complaints that the state is now cost shifting this responsibility, but guess what? Typical state and local government, no money comes with it. They're very disrespectful for people's private property rights, and there's been numerous examples of that. Slow response times, people have waited up 3, 4, 6 months, and you can't have an eradication program. I think their indicator is 3 weeks. Maybe it should be 2 to 3 days. If you're getting serious about eradication of a pest, the overall lack of transparency. They always talk about how much bait they've put out, how many properties they've actually treated, but you never hear about the outcome, what percentage are they getting towards the eradication of that species. They never want to talk about that, because that's the key measurable in an eradication program. So there's a potential model here, because remember back to that Beckett curve, the invasion curve, it's about how we're going to manage this as a community. Yeah? We don't want fire ants to spread throughout Queensland, throughout Australia. We want to hold them here as much as we possible, but we've got to do it in a collaborative way. And what they do with a lot of other pest species like wild dogs, pigs, locusts, weeds, they have community-led syndicates where the community takes on the lead role. Government, local government still fund it, but it's not a big push and it's not led by federal government. Yeah. And so this, I found up this flashy little diagram, and what this is, that's a sweet spot, that purple spot in the middle. So you've got the state government that oversees, they're still the chief executive of biosecurity in Queensland. They would supply resources and knowledge into these syndicates, and you could have a number of syndicates across an area. You've got local community that would lead it, and you might have a bunch of, say, hay producers leading a syndicate in a separate area, and you've got biosecurity also on that syndicate that reports to it, and you've got a heavy local government involvement. Because under the Biosecurity Act, local government really have key responsibilities to manage pests in their own area, and they have to develop biosecurity management plans. And some local governments have syndicates already attached around Queensland to help meet the objectives and their responsibilities of both us and the local government to control pests. And then you've got management services. You're in a syndicate, it could be however big. There's some syndicates that cover millions of hectares for wild dogs and pigs, and there's some syndicates that just cover a suburb. So it's dynamic, it can suit the needs of the community, and it works. It's been proven, it works, and this is the model that I'm saying, and working in other pest species. Why can't we trial it in these areas to make, because we're going to have to live with fire ants. We've got to start to work out what is the best methodology for managing it as a community and industry together. Not the top-down approach with disrespect and doesn't bring the whole people with it. It's about putting people first, putting the livelihoods first, and businesses first. Yeah? So it's really dominated by community members. Local government plays a big role, as I've seen in other syndicates. There's some syndicates in Queensland that have been running for over 100 years out west to protect sheep from wild dogs. Feral pig syndicates have been running for a number of years, and some syndicates manage a number of pest species. State provides funding directly to local government, and the local government helps out those syndicates with logistics, with some funding, and it seems to work very well. And an important thing, we can move on to, is that the state government and local governments still have a definite responsibility to manage land under their control. Because what we're hearing is that they're coming heavy on farmers and on private property, but they're not coming heavy on state-owned land. education land, Department of Transport land, railway land, which they still have a responsibility under the Act, just like everyone in this room does. Yeah? Okay. So it's about using local knowledge, like in this community here, in the Sanford community, there's an informal community network, yeah? And that's how you will see you get the best communication, people know what's going on, and that's what syndicates do. They use that established informal network to actually make things happen. There has to be a bit of formality. You might have to have a community champion, which could be paid from administration support to put the whole thing together. But it's not like people have to go to meetings all the time. You might just say, well, I'm part of the syndicate, but to manage my place, I'm just going to call, say, treating with this machine, because I don't like chemicals. I want it done in a non-toxic manner. Or you might have someone else that is fine about using chemicals. The key thing about syndicates, it gives people choice right through the spectrum, and that's what's important here. They're not giving you a choice of how you treat your own land, when you treat your own land. We all want to get rid of this, we all want to manage this pest on your own property, but you want more choice of what happens on your own property. You don't want to get arrested and put in a police car just because you wanted to do it on your own terms, and we made a natural chemical. So the cost efficiency. What in my experience over 30 years of biosecurity management, government wastes a lot of money. Yeah, does that surprise you? Bureaucracies cost a lot of money. Remember, it's not their money, it's our money. Where you've got people like a lot of farmers that they don't get paid every week by the government. They have to manage their farm and their income. And when these things are forced on them, it actually costs a lot of their time and costs a lot of their profit to do that. And so it's about community can do it cheaper and more effective, and what happens, you get more buy-in because you get more ownership. When you're there driving yourself and your mates, and as a community, still with help from government, but only some seed funding, you get the better outcomes. And I've seen that over and over again. You get better buy-in, and that's actually a principle under biosecurity, is that it's all about increasing ownership of the community to the pest issue and partnering and collaboration. I don't think there's much partnering and collaboration happening here. Yep. Social cohesion. See, we've got a broad spectrum. There'll be people in this room that don't want to have anything to do with chemical, and that's fine. And there's people at the other end that use chemical, they might use chemical on their farms, but what it does is culturally sensitive. And that's the way it should be. And that's where I was getting that choice spectrum again. But everyone agrees that they want to treat fire ants, but they want a choice of how they do it. In America, they have things where neighbourhoods treat all at the same time, a couple of times a season, and that will be a key with any syndicate when you control pigs, when you control feral animals or weeds, like you do it over a whole catching area, so there's no gaps in it. So that's a key function of syndicates as well. Yeah? And it helps to meet your regulation. We've all got and the government loves to say this, we've all got a biosecurity responsibility. They love drawing that out, general biosecurity responsibility under that, and this helps meet that obligation. Yeah? Knowledge sharing, capacity building. We all will have more of an idea what's going on in our own community, where the nests are. You might have some new fire ants that come in mulch, and you can say, well, where did that come from? Those nests only happened on Trevor's Place when the mulch came in from out of town, so you can tell the department, well, something's going on here. Yep. So it's a grassroots up approach. Like we see it in every aspect of our lives that it's always a top-down approach. And there seems the bigger the government grows, the more top-down authority there is. They love to tell us what to do, what to think, what kind of car we can drive, how we can treat our properties, where it should be more choice back to us of how to treat these things. We need personal choice, and they're not giving that, especially on our own property. And like Malcolm said, property rights is fundamental to a prosperous society. If we lose that, we lose democracy. Yes. So the challenges, there's always challenges. Political leadership to adopt a more collaborative community model. So it's driven from, like what we're doing now, like a more top-down authoritarian approach to more bottom-up community collaboration and partnership. And that, remember, it can be a bunch of producers, beef producers, hay producers. Have your own syndicate where the government just ticks off, they're meeting all the requirements, but then it's given to them. There's some trust and some respect. And state government let go of some of that money, because you know they won't grab that money. They're all like handing out responsibility, but they don't like getting any money attached to it. Give some seed money out, and the government used to have programs where they used to give seed money out to community for the development syndicates to help local governments go in a certain direction that's proactive pest management instead of reactive. And acceptance by this is what it's going to take, like from a state level and even a federal level. There needs to be an acceptance that we're never going to eradicate fire ants. They need to accept that. Stop talking about eradication outside the main model. Sure, eradicate them where there's isolated infestations because we know that it's possible. But within the main containment zone, let's look at a model that is going to work for us as a community from now until the next 100 years. We're never going to wipe them out. They're always going to be jumping that barrier, and we need to actively react as well. But together as a community, we should be asking our politicians, state and federal and local, that we want something different. Let's trial something different and get ready to how we're going to manage fire ants for the rest of our lives. Yep. That's it. Thank you very much.
Moving on from that, and it's a real pleasure that we have listening to someone like Jim with real life experience in biosecurity. He doesn't talk about it much, but he was actually there in 2001 when they were found. So it's a real pleasure, Jim, to have you here talk about it and share your experience and knowledge with everyone about that. So moving on, obviously we've got some time constraints, so I just wanted to just have a bit of a look at the web page with some of the information we've got on it. But just bear with me, I've got to try and get the online guides on the same page as us, so let's just have a look here and see how we go. Here's the website, agpilot.com. We just, if we screws, it just sort of talks about there, and if you type in your email address and your email address there and press subscribe, then you become a subscriber. It talks about membership services and the values and all that sort of stuff. But scroll down to the bottom to our navigation page here. We can go to our campaigns. Currently, it's just that one campaign listed. On the phone, it's probably hard to click that, stop the eradication scam link from there, but if you click campaigns anyway, you can get to the eradication thing. So I put a lot of the resources here and what this campaign's about. We talk about, as Jim says, recognising fire ant eradication is impossible, ending prophylactic distribution of toxic chemicals by utilising direct nest treatments, providing alternative to chemical treatments for managing fire ants, and subsidies for private property holders to utilise approved alternatives, and utilising alternatives to chemical treatments to manage fire ants in sensitive ecosystems and public use areas like playgrounds and parks, and respecting private property rights and personal individual choice, and utilising the community to initiate policy change to meet these objectives. These guys aren't just going to change their mind, we've got to put pressure on and hopefully create better outcomes. So we've got Sarah's Facebook group linked there, but this is what I just want to quickly talk about, some of the most influential changes and to give people access to these documents. So the number one was the program strategic review, August 2021. So you can download that review there. Basically, it's a pretty long document, it takes a lot of time, but the review gave 3 options. Option 1 was elimination by 2032, option B was containment, and option C was uncontrolled spread. And obviously they chose option A. But they talk about their chemicals that they wanted to move forward with there in their treatment approach, and they've got the summary in that there. So from that, the number 2 document obviously is the National Fire and Eradication Program's response. So they have a response to that, and again it's a pretty big document and you can download it there. But in summary, there was 27 recommendations made to the National Fire and Eradication Program to enhance its effectiveness. They adopted 17 of them in full, partially adopted 5, noted 2, considered 1 not applicable, and did not adopt 2 recommendations. And it talks about that there. And as everyone knows, option A was the way they went through there. So then that created the number 3 most influential document is 2023-2027 response plan. That's what we're on now. In response to that strategic review in 2021. So you can download that plan there as well. So some of the most common documents that they refer to is this number 4. The Australian Institute done a costing and they went all the suburbs and that, and they made assumptions like 30% of people are going to get bit by fire ants, and of that, 3% are going to have problems and 0.3% will die or something like that, and it's going to cost all this money. And that's some of the costings that they use to justify their current approach. So you can have a look at that there. I won't go through it now, but there's a conclusion out there. Again, it's another document. We're just trying to empower people with all this information so you can see it for yourself. So number 5 is sample contamination correspondence. So obviously Sarah McGuire organised some water tests, paid for out of her own money, sent it off to Glorious Water. She'll talk about that a bit later on next. And also there was a Department of Environment confirmation letter that they contaminated Sanford area accidentally. Obviously number 6 is Dr. Joshua King's open letter of concern and supporting documents, so that's available for people to download, and all these supporting documents that and research assessments that went with that letter. We'll talk about that a bit further. But so they're available for everyone to download. And his patent on his hot water system that we've got an Australian version of it out there, so that's all available as well. Number 7 is Pesticide Action Australia, PAA. They have a statement of concern with PFAS in pesticides. So there's a Senate inquiry at the moment going on, a PFAS inquiry, so they've actually lodged this to the Senate inquiry. And the Australian Advocacy Group also made a submission to that as well. I've got a copy of mine there, I'll probably upload it on here later. So that's available for download. But supporting documents, because a lot of the media campaigns and even the Facebook groups of the National Fire Eradication Program deny using PFAS chemicals. But supporting documents on that is the PFAS National Environmental Management Plan 3.0. The program Management Plan 2.0, which is the previous one, which used the EPA Environmental Protection Agency's definition of a PFAS, which they can wiggle their way out of it. But under this one here, they used a different definition, which they can't wiggle their way out of. And we'll talk about that later. And also just the PFAS Australian map, so all the chemicals that are classed as PFAS are used in Australia in this document, so you've got access to that. Number 8 is permits, APVMA permits at the moment, so they're all available here, and as Connie will probably talk about later, they're changing them all the time, so you've got to make sure that you're getting the up-to-date ones. We'll try and keep that up to date as much as possible, and Connie will talk about that. And obviously the contradictions and the National Fire and Eradication Program's denial of use of PFAS. It's unbelievable, really. But we'll talk about that a bit obviously the acts and what they're using, the Biosecurity Act 2014, the Environmental Act, Human Rights Act, they're also the Disability Act, they're breaching, as Malcolm said earlier, they're just breaching everything, they don't care about anything, it doesn't matter. They'll breach anything in their agenda. But, and we're going to put some supplementary research there in 10, so all this stuff about the effects of and different research and that on the chemicals actually used, so they're all available there for anyone to have a look at, and all the peer reviews of that. And here's Jim speaking at Sanford. We're at Fernval today, Jim, by the way. We're not in Sanford, we're at Fernval today. Jim's a little bit lost, but this is him when he spoke at Sanford the other day, and that's the full video uploaded if you want to delve into his presentation there. So that's pretty good. But I want to move forward and just to bring to people's attention what happened at Flying Fox, if you don't know. So I just want to play this video for everybody. See if we can get some sound.
If anyone doesn't want to, we can just go we're here the tree. All of you must read that sign before you go through. And if anyone says in the future they didn't read it, the onus is on you because it's very clearly in front of you. Okay? So we're just documenting this. I'm not stopping any of you here because you told me you're coming in anyway. You haven't given me a choice.
This is Dr. Damon
So now you're all aware. I'm taking away your excuse to say you didn't know what you did. Okay? Anyone got a problem with that? So it doesn't matter. I'm not getting any words because we're going to discussion, not the floor. We're here to treat the property. We've been waiting here for 3 hours. Okay. You will give me 10 minutes. My name I'm an authorised appointment under the Biosecurity Act. Okay. You see my ID card. I'll show you that to you. So, no one is really reading out on camera. He's not letting me speak. I want all of you to know these summonses shall be issued today. You've been on. So, you're all going to get one of these. So, I'll start again. The purpose of everyone's report. I'm going to say one last thing to you. I put the shirt on for a reason. As a justice of the peace, I'm telling you guys to leave. And if you say it the second time, as a justice of the peace, I'm telling you guys to leave. You want me to say it third time? You can say it 10 times. Okay. As a justice of the peace, I'm telling you guys to leave until these concerns are addressed. You don't have to ignore my rights. So we acknowledge that human rights in the nature of this program are impacted property owners. That's balanced against the rights of the community at large. So again, just to get through it, so my name is Fernval Commynity Meeting, Queensland. I'm an authorised officer appointed under Biosecurity Act. You've seen my ID card. You've been the occupier of this place, Damon. I'm speaking to you. You voiced your concerns. As you may already be aware, the National Red Border Fire